And like, what does it mean to be emotionally whole? It means to get to a point in your life where from what you know and from what you feel, all the pain in your past is gone or healed from.
There's no childhood that needs to be gained back. I can give myself those, like I can make those things. The truth was I needed to get off my butt and do something when I was having panic attacks. I needed to either breathe or I needed to take an action, and I bought a dog and I started going on runs every day. I started waking up early and on time.
You vocally say what you want or need in your life, and then you put your finger out and watch and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen someone, out of all the clients I've seen, I have never seen someone that has been really sincere and intentional with what they're doing and not see a positive change in their life.
Mm-hmm.
Acting on emotions as guides to truth. Stillness. Surrendering to what is. Seeking. Using my gifts with purpose. Light. This is the emotional blueprint.
Something I've been thinking about recently that has made me think of you is this idea of like being emotionally like whole. And like, what does it mean to be emotionally whole? It means to get to a point in your life where from what you know and from what you feel, all the pain in your past is gone or healed from, or replaced with like gifts and, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So basically what it means to be emotionally whole is like my past pain, that door is closed.
Yeah. So
you have like arrived there, like you are there. And my question is like, because a lot of people are trying to get there. Like this is a big, because as soon as you get there, as soon as you are like emotionally whole and your past, that past door is kind of closed, like for real, mm-hmm. then it just leaves the doors open of present and being still. So it leaves the present door wide open, and then it leaves the future door wide open. So it's like, cool, I don't have to worry about my past anymore. I can just focus on the present moment, and then I can focus on like fulfilling my purpose. Mm-hmm. And that space is like, it's the best. It's so, I love it. I'm addicted to like the present, and probably too addicted to like vision, like think of my purpose and thinking about that. But I love those two spaces. They're so much better than having to like, obviously
be stuck
like
somewhere in the past or something. Or
100%.
Man, I've been thinking about that, like, especially the past few days. I don't even know why. I just like had some random conversations with people and was thinking about that and was realizing that like in some ways that like I've had to let go, like letting go of the anger or the frustration or sadness or whatever, like letting go of that anger. It's mostly anger for me, for my past. And like letting go of that, I had thought for such a long time that it had something to do with not letting go of my childhood that I didn't get. That like things that weren't there for me, that anger was resembling or some sort of a symbol of the things that I wanted still. And I was like, no, I have no reason to be angry anymore. I don't even see, like, I've gone back into that situation. I've walked myself through and I've told myself what I deserve. And I like realized there's no need for those things anymore. There's no, I don't know. I came to this realization that I've already let go of the anger, that I've already let go of those feelings. And there's no childhood that needs to be gained back. I can give myself those, like I can make those things. Yeah. It's kind of a new area recently.
That's so cool. So for you right now, it's almost been like a decision.
Oh,
like, I'm going to decide to move forward. Mm-hmm. So, but before that, to fully like close, to become emotionally whole, letting go is like an important part of that process. I have to let go of my past pain.
Mm-hmm.
And so I want to talk about your story a little bit, about how have you gotten to this place of being more emotionally whole? Like, yeah. Because you talked about how like recently you like made a decision, but for most people it's wrong for them to do that right now, because if somebody has a lot of past pain that isn't resolved and they're just like, I'm just going to decide to move forward, it's like,
it's not going to work.
You are avoiding,
Mm-hmm.
you're swimming against the river.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
And the current is going to kick the trash out of you.
Yeah. I think, that's tough. I feel like
it is tough.
It's so connected. Everything is so connected. Yeah. Like, I feel like for me, I had to make enough mistakes to know that they were things I needed to change. I needed to know that those things were things that I was missing, that I didn't have. Like, I needed to be more aware in general what I was feeling, what was going on, and why, where they were coming from, and what scenarios or situations from the past were keeping those things from me. And after I worked on like realizing those things and going through those situations, I realized that I didn't have much of a hard time telling the truth when I went back into those situations. If I was actually able to get in there, into that time that I was hurt or whatever, I already had known the truth before. Like I already knew the right answer, and it was just making myself realize and decide and let it sit and like sit in that feeling and like let it pass. A lot of those things, like I knew something was wrong with that situation, and I think that everybody kind of has some sort of an inkling that wasn't, at least I don't know if that was right, I don't know if that was wrong, can't really pinpoint what happened that was really bad, but something was wrong there, and I'm just gonna put a pin in it until I figure that out. And I had a lot of things with pins in them from my past just waiting to be resolved, and I think I had little notes and things on each of those, but I hadn't gone in and really figured it out, solved it, resolved it. And that was a huge part of getting to that feeling of being able to decide who you want to be and stuff, is, picking through that.
So I remember, we've been friends for a while. And I remember this point where you texted me and you're like, dude, like, well, I got to do a session.
Yeah.
And we started talking.
Yeah.
When we started doing these, like just meeting up as friends, like what really started to help you, not necessarily from me, but what did you realize, what started to help you the most as to help you start to like let go of things that that were affecting you in your life? Like what was affecting you in your life and what were you struggling with? And then what really started to help you move the needle?
Yeah. Yeah. Some context would be good. So at that time in my life, I was having a really hard time. If I remember correctly, it was right after my mission. And I was in a relationship with a girl who didn't know what she wanted and didn't know who she was, and had a lot of things that were weighing her down. And I think I did too. And that made the relationship really hard. There were a lot of things in that weren't very good for me. That, and amongst other things, I wasn't reading scriptures. I wasn't going to church. I wasn't even in nature. I wasn't really trying to develop things for myself. I was stagnant and I was sad. And
so spiritually, you were pretty, like, I don't know, a little bit disconnected.
Yeah, like, well,
No, I mean, not disconnect's the right word,
Yeah.
but just kind of like
I wasn't
removed.
active. Yeah.
You were active.
I
Yeah,
wasn't
that's
like
a good way to put it.
actively doing it. I never stopped believing in a God. I never stopped thinking that he was there looking over me, judging me or whatever. But something was keeping me from acting on those things. Something about me wasn't allowing that to happen with God. And I didn't know what that was, and I wanted to figure that out pretty desperately, actually. Like, why am I feeling this way? Why aren't I feeling that way? I just want to be happy.
So you know that something's off.
Mm-hmm.
You know that you're not feeling the way that you want to.
Yeah.
And you start to get an idea that I think it's because I'm not like spiritually active the way that I need to be. Maybe don't have these spiritual practices that I need to have. And then what did you do next? Because I remember you making these major shifts.
Yeah, it was a pretty quick change, after figuring out some of the tools that I could use, learning new tools, learning new ways to attack these things. I think I just found a support system quickly and dove in as hard as I could. I said, either I'm going to half-ass this and fall off to the wayside in a couple weeks, and I already know where that leads, or I double down right now and give it a fair shot. My whole thing was like honesty. Like, am I truly giving what I can, or am I hiding like I've been hiding? Am I still hiding? Like, even with my efforts, am I hiding from myself on like what those efforts really are? I just wanted to do it honestly. Like, if I'm going to do it, I should probably tell the truth to myself too when I'm doing it. That was a big thing for me during that process. And the truth is hard all the time. Like,
the truth is painful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's merciless.
Yep. It's true.
And I've fallen in love with the truth though. Like, the truth was I needed to get off my butt and do something when I was having panic attacks. I needed to either breathe or I needed to take an action. And I bought a dog and I started going on runs every day. I started waking up early and on time. I started eating food regularly, started actually feeling right because my chemicals were balanced and things. And I learned about my body. I learned about my spirit.
I think that's a powerful message, and something that we've been talking a bit about so far on the podcast is like, what do I do? Like, where do I start if I am like pretty depressed or I'm having pretty strong panic attacks?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it doesn't matter where you start, as long as it's not like gnarly drugs or
right, yeah.
It's things that are like objectively good. It doesn't matter where you start. Just like getting some momentum. I mean, it always has to start somewhere, and it's cool. It's like, because those things that you're talking about, like I got a dog and I started running and I started doing those things aren't going to heal you of your pain, but they put you in a position to do that. It's like they help me feel more balanced and a little bit more grounded and connected. And then that's where the magic starts happening.
Right. Like, I think I had the wrong type of fuel in my body, and I need a healthy, a good kind of fuel. And that was how I got it, was physically getting myself out there, counting 3, 2, 1. I don't know what I'm going to do, but I'm out of my bed now. I'm moving now. It doesn't matter. Putting responsibility on myself, like a dog or friends that also need me, like Tanner.
Yeah.
We were living together.
Tanner.
And we made promises to each other. That's what I meant by support system, is we spent time talking over what we wanted and what we didn't, and making promises to each other that, hey, if you're going to give it a real shot, I'll give it a real shot. That was a big thing for us. For me, having a support system was something new. Having someone in the mental health side of a support system was completely new too. At that time.
That's such a powerful principle of, I mean, it reminds me of this story that I've shared with you before of what you're saying. So it's such a powerful principle though, of like promising to, if you believe in God, making a promise to God. If you believe in nature or the universe, like making a promise externally to nature or something greater than yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then asking it, trying to listen and asking it for something in return. Like, hey, I'm going to give this a real shot. And if I do this, I want to be able to start feeling more hope in my life. Maybe that's an example.
Yeah.
Like, I think you'll know if
Mm-hmm.
someone's being sincere and doing it, I think you'll know what's like reasonable and what's not reasonable and what's right and what's not right. Like, you just kind of trust your intuition.
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me of this story with my daughter that I've shared with you before. But I was talking to my wife the other night. She's like, I want you to tell me that story about our daughter because you've told everyone else, but you have never told me. And I felt kind of bad. I'm like, okay, yeah. This story is always going to stay with me. It's like, it's just such a, it's just really sacred to me. So we're walking out here, actually, just on the grass. And I'm carrying this TV, and I put the TV down and I look behind me and I see that she's looking up in the sky. And I'm like, what is she doing? And my daughter is obsessed with bugs. She loves bugs. And she sees this huge dragonfly, this giant dragonfly flying like 20 feet in the air. And I can see her like tracking it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I'm like, I remember like, that's so cute. And then she instinctively, I see her smile and she puts her finger out. And I kid you not, like this dragonfly from 20 feet up in the air, just instantly, like almost like a laser, went straight to her finger and landed on her finger. And she looks at me and she's like, Daddy, Daddy, look. She's crying.
Mm-hmm.
And I look at her and I'm crying. And I kneel down next to her and I see that it was just like this magical moment. I can't really describe it, but it was a miracle. And it's this beautiful principle that we're talking about of like faith or manifesting, whatever you want to call it. But you put your finger out. You vocally say what you want or need in your life. And then you put your finger out and watch and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen someone, out of all the clients I've seen, I have never seen someone that has been really sincere and intentional with what they're doing and not see a positive change in their life.
Mm-hmm. Now,
I think a lot of people are not doing this from a place of stillness or doing this from a place of sincerity. You have to make sure that your desire and what you want is like actually what's right for you. And we can talk more about that, but there's a few things to it, but it's a very real thing. I believe that's how the earth was created, by a God that was like, you know what? This would be pretty cool. Like, and the how everything is created mentally or spiritually before it manifests itself physically. Anything that actually matters in life is created spiritually or mentally before it manifests itself physically. It's just how life works.
Yeah.
So you're a great example of that, because you were struggling and you were like not even able to get out of bed and having panic attacks and like isolating. And it's like, I had to make a promise with someone or something and really just start to commit to it. And then, I mean, look where you are now. It's such a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm.
You're an inspiration to me in many ways, as I've told you privately.
Thanks, Corey.
Yeah.
And likewise.
Yeah. Thank you. So I want to ask you about like your culture. So Ernest is half Japanese, half West.
White.
Half
Fairfax,
West, half
Virginia,
Westerner.
I guess. Yeah.
And I'm jealous of that, because
Should be.
For many reasons. But I want to ask you, like, I went to, we talked about this privately,
Yeah.
but I went to Japan for the first time last year.
Mhm.
And I have a decent amount of Japanese clients who are secretly my favorite. But what, how has I want to talk a bit about the Japanese culture. How have you noticed the Japanese culture influence you in some really good ways? And then how has it maybe been a hindrance for you or made some things perhaps more challenging?
I think the easy answer is the ones that are good, because Japan is, I was lucky enough to, I say that now. At the time, I didn't feel as lucky, but I definitely feel lucky now to have the experience of moving there when I was a teenager, living there for...
I didn't know that. I know you told me that.
Yeah. I lived there.
So you lived there when you were a teenager?
3.5 years.
Amazing.
Almost like 3.5 years I lived there. And
so you're fully fluent?
No. Well, I wasn't.
Oh.
Not even close actually when I was there, but I went to a Japanese college. Like I learned Japanese in that college. When I was like 16, my dad was like he was over the, what do you call it? Academic. I don't know. He was just like the dean or whatever. It was a program for Japanese speaking Americans who were coming to like have a cultural experience, like an exchange program. And I got to be in that school and like learn with those kids in those classrooms. And
oh, cool.
So I was like decent at Japanese. But to answer your story, to answer your question, with Japan, like they have this overarching level, like this huge level of respect for where they are, the home that they have, the town that they're in, the neighbors that they have. Like it doesn't matter. Like they have deep respect for what they have and what's not theirs even. Because I was just, to give you an example, like there's a sense of responsibility. There was this old lady who was like 90, right, who lived across the street from us. I remember in the morning sometimes I would see her outside with her little broom and her little, like, she had a hunchback because, most of those people are rice paddy workers and they got like the hook,
right,
back. And she's out there sweeping our driveway, getting rid of our dirt on our driveway. And, we asked her before, like, why do you do that? And she's like, well, you're my neighbor. And it's like, oh, that's really interesting. That's special, And we had our other next door neighbor who owned a Kobe beef farm, and they welcomed us with a big plate of Kobe beef, and that stuff is not cheap. And it's like that's
Kobe
their
beef. My
that's like their
so
way. It's responsibility, it's respect, and it's like honor. They live by these principles, and I was like, as a angsty little teenager, I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of a butt, and I would go around and like be all mad and stuff and like have my headphones in. And I would remember there was this one experience where I like accidentally knocked over some stuff in like a grocery store, and the attendant, the worker came and she apologized to me for what had happened.
Like,
and
sorry,
I was
sorry that I put that there.
So sorry that happened.
Oh
Are you
gosh.
okay? And as like a 16-year-old, I was like, I was taken aback by that. I've never seen someone act like that. It changed my view. A lot of those experiences in Japan changed my view of people and humanity and stuff. But those are really great qualities. I love those things about Japan. They are very diligent people in a lot of ways. My mom is probably the best example I know of that.
That's cool. Yeah, let's talk about all the good things first. It reminds me of this Japanese word, which you probably know how to pronounce it. It's REI, rei. It's what you're talking about. It's the practice of respect, and it's deeply ingrained in Japanese customs. Rei guides interpersonal interactions by emphasizing respect, honor, and courtesy for others, regardless of their status. So I went to Japan last year, and there's a story that always stuck with me. There's this homeless guy I think somebody gave him a bag of chips, and he's sitting outside of a 7-Eleven or something, a gas station. And he is about to open up this bag of chips. And this mom and this daughter walked out. And he like signaled over to have the daughter come by him. And the mom was totally cool with it. And then he handed the daughter his bag of chips. And then the mom helped up this homeless guy, and they were like laughing and talking as they were walking down the street. it's like that doesn't happen anywhere in the world. And it's such a beautiful example of like what the Japanese culture is all about. And it's a really good reminder to us in the West about how a community, how we should be in our families. And it makes me think of like parenting. Like I have younger daughter. I have 2 younger daughters, another one on the way. But as they get older, like I see this all the time in therapy where parents come in and they're like, they view themselves as the authoritative figure. They view themselves as the teacher. And it's like, yes, in some ways you are parent, but your student but your kid is also the teacher. They need to feel like a teacher to you. You need to learn from them. And ideally they need to learn from you. You're both the teacher and the student. And that's what's so beautiful about the Japanese culture.
That level of that mutual respect, just for whoever. I totally agree. I think that it's interesting you bring up like the parent-child dynamic, because that kind of leads into some of the negative things that come from Japanese culture. There are some things that, like expressing emotion, expressing feelings. That isn't something that parents do a lot to their kids. It's not normal, at least, for a parent to tell their child that they're amazing or that they love them. I know that my mom would talk about that from her parents, that they didn't talk like that, that wasn't how people act towards each other. More reserved about their feelings, a lot more like, he's in his room, leave him in there, like, oh, they're in their room, like, you know, that's kind of how they are. They're very secluded, very respectful of their space, even if it's their kid, but there's a level of closeness that isn't there because of that, with emotions and things. That the Japanese are very, I don't know, like stoic maybe? Like they're really, most of the time, they're just like business. I don't know, like,
right. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I can tell you get a little emotional when you bring that up about how it's not a custom in Japan to tell their kid that they love them or to express how they feel.
It's more common to express the things you're not happy with.
Why does that hit? Why does that strike a chord with you?
Because even though I'm half Japanese, my household was a lot more, had adopted a lot more of the Western customs, because my dad loves Japan. He was a Japanese history major, lived there for years, had a kid there, you know, like we lived there. And so he was kind of like a nerd about the culture and wanted to adopt all that into the household. But the expectations that come with that, I mean, there's a reason the suicide rates are so high out there.
Yeah, we should talk about that.
Right. I mean, the expectations were very high in my household, and failure was not very accepted. I wasn't one who ran with the crowd in my family. I was more of the black sheep, if that's even a thing. Like, I just was different. I did sports. They did other things. Like, they were very good in academics, and I was more of a rowdy kid. And my parents had a hard time with that, because academics matter, music matters, like things like that are more important. And yeah, that stuff was hard.
So the reason why you got a little emotional or that struck a chord with you is because that's your own story. That's your own painful story of like needing, as a boy, as a teenager, needing to feel like loved and approved of. But the culture and who your parents were played a role in you just not feeling that the way that a boy needs to.
Yeah. I mean,
and you've healed from pretty much all of that, but yeah.
I think that some of the sadness is really, I don't feel those feelings about myself anymore, because I've gotten to talk with my parents about it. We've worked through that. I've told them, hey, we had issues. I get it. Like, can we be friends now? Are we good? Like, we've had a lot of different conversations along those lines, but I was really thinking of all the other boys that I knew out there that had that lived like that with their families. Because I knew I had that, but I was also partially Americanized, because my dad, you know, but they had 2 Japanese parents, and I can only imagine in some ways how hard that could have been for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think like the perfect on a larger scale, like the perfect community is merging the East and the West.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, okay, so in Japan, an example of the East, they're all about community, but they forget about the individual. But then in America, we're all about the individual, but then we forget about the community. So this is why the community and the harmony, what's that word in Japanese? Harmony. Everyone seems to understand that even though I work at McDonald's, I play a really important role in making people's day go better, a part of the larger group. And they feel pride in that, like they're
accomplished. In that.
Like it's only 5 minutes or 30 seconds that I interact, but it makes their day better. They get their fries, they get their Big Mac, whatever. I remember feeling that. I'm like, wow, this is like, I was so inspired by it. It's like the honor, like I've never been a bower, but since I came back, like I do it.
It's hard not to.
It's such a beautiful gratitude and respect and a vulnerable thing to do. I think it's beautiful.
Just a thought while you're saying that is like, one thing when I first moved there that made me laugh so many times when I would go into a store and everyone stops what they're doing, looks at you at the door and says, "Irashaimase, do," like, come on in, welcome. Everyone, every store, all the time, they'll always do that to whoever walks through the door. How likely would you be to break things and steal things in a store where people noticed you when you walked in and said, "Hi, welcome"?
Right.
Like,
that's why their crime is pretty much non-existent. Well, that's not the only reason. There's many reasons.
But it plays a huge part in how you feel in that place.
One of my Japanese clients that goes back there quite a bit says that when she walks around, she told me this before I went. When she walks around, she could tell that the buildings were sad. And when I was there, I was so inspired by the community, but then I would kind of tap into the energy or the vibe of the people that I was seeing and in the subway or whatever, the metro, whatever it's called there, and just the collective group. And there was this like undercurrent of sadness that I could sense from honestly almost everyone that I was, sensing or observing.
Yeah.
And that had an impact on me too. It made me kind of feel sad because these people are so beautiful.
Yeah.
They're honestly like some of my favorite. They're so inspirational. And it's what's sad. And this is, I believe, one of the reasons why the suicide rate is, Japan's like number 1 consistently on suicides in the world. Because they're suffering emotionally in silence.
In silence, exactly.
So just the beauty of merging those. Imagine if Japan was, I guess, to some degree more like American culture, or in the fact that we're pretty open. Not everyone, but I think that's dying in America too, by the way, but that's accepted. Like if you're emotionally open, people like are drawn to that. They want to be a part of that.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful part of our culture here. And so merging those, so merging those collectively is really cool, but also the power in merging those like individually, like how I treat people and the gratitude and respect I have to that really matters, and making sure that we're also being open and vulnerable and dealing with it. So it's the best way to go on a collective level, but it's how we heal on an individual level, merging the East and the West. And we should talk more about that spiritually too, which is cool. But just any other thoughts, man, on the Japanese culture?
I think something that really deeply impacted me was church in Japan. Context, I was probably the only kid who passed, blessed, and broke the sacrament. I was the
In your
only
church,
kid in my young men's class. I was one of two in seminary class. That was like 5 a.m. or whatever, like 6 a.m. But seeing how diligently people have served when there's only 50 people and there's only one kid, and how that teacher gets there early before me every single seminary class, how, the bishop would come to my house and check on me regularly, just as a friend. Even if I wouldn't want to see him, he would just stand in the front of the house or talk to my dad or whatever in the living room. The level of diligence that those people have, the reverence that they have towards the things that they believe in, I never saw that here.
It's part of the samurai spirit.
Yeah, they are very deep and reverent about these things. The most spiritual people.
Anyone that hasn't been as a Westerner definitely needs to go. And if you go as like, I'm a guest,
Mm-hmm.
and you go with humility and like not trying to push your own preferences or agenda, like it's like a guarantee you'll have it's going to be impactful.
Yeah, do it their way and see how you feel after.
Do it their way. That's how you really travel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a guest and I'm going to do it their way. I'm not going to special order crap.
Not going to complain.
Because that's so offensive in so many other countries. We don't even realize it, especially in France.
Yeah.
They so.
Mm-hmm. I think that was probably, those kinds of things really like made lasting impressions on me when I came back. Like my view of the church, of just spiritual things in general. I really don't think that, like, I've looked back and I think everything was I know everything in my life was for a reason, but it's so beautiful to me to see how intricately they're woven together. How I don't understand how the trauma from my childhood could connect to the spirituality that I felt in Japan, that would connect to me being lost for a while and then deciding on my own to go on a mission after I was supposed to, after my family disowned me, figuring out, that stuff wouldn't have happened, I don't think, if I wouldn't have had the spiritual touch that I got in Japan. That reverence to listen and to be still gave me that, ability to have that later when I was trying to figure that out. What should I do? And I just know that they're connected. The reverence that I had to find the answers then were from that time in Japan.
Let's talk about Shinto for a second. Shinto.
Mm-hmm.
This is because this weaves strongly in Japanese culture. So Shinto
Mm-hmm.
is the indigenous spirituality of Japan. It emphasizes harmony with nature and respect for one's ancestors. Samurai often pray to kami, which is spiritual beings or God, for protection and guidance. We've talked a lot about spirituality and developing spiritually, and the whole purpose of this podcast is developing spiritually and developing emotionally. And what really sticks out to me from what you're saying, and we were talking about this yesterday, is if somebody doesn't believe in God, there's what seems to be very real, and this is part of the Japanese and Shinto way, is that they believe that their ancestors are that have died, or if there's anyone close to you that has died, like they're these guides that are around you all the time,
mm-hmm.
that are there, present. And in order, how do I tap into that, or how can I feel close to someone that has died? How can I actually communicate with them? Well, the way that spirits communicate is through the channel of stillness. You cannot be thinking and consumed with whatever is going on in your life. You have to be still. And this was the practice of, this is why this is why Japanese and Eastern cultures are so inspirational, is they're all about the stillness, the practice of stillness. And then what comes from that can be very real and meaningful connection.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reminded me of what you were talking about.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, yeah, I think how can you feel slight things or hear really soft voices if you're making any kind of noise or if you're moving it at all, you know, like in some aspects, I think that that's like literal, like you actually have to be still sometimes. Stop what you're doing, you know?
Totally.
And that's, I think that they are really good about that. That's the whole Zen garden thing is, you know, taking time is okay.
And not only like necessary, like it's that important for me to take time that I'm going to build a garden.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of this space is to be still, basically.
Exactly.
And from that, maybe reflect or think about how to solve a problem or something. So it's just awesome. So I want to talk more about, you mentioned like expectation. I want to talk about, I definitely want to talk about that, because that's a big part of Japanese culture. I remember being on the bus in Japan, and they have these signs, and one of the signs says like, basically like, be respectful of other people. When you get off the bus, make sure you have the exact change for your fare, so that you don't make other people wait.
Yes, they care.
I remember these signs. Yes. Like, and just reading that, I think it was written in I think it was written in English, actually, in Japanese. But anyways, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to inconvenience anyone. Like, and I remember going up there, and I didn't have the exact change. I didn't have any change, and I'm like fumbling. And like, I don't ever feel shame. I very rarely feel shame in my life. That's just not something that I've struggled with that much. And I remember feeling this like deep shame. It was honestly mostly the collective shame of this, the energy of the moment. That everyone. But it was palpable. Like I was feeling it personally too. I'm like, because like, if a train is more than like a couple minutes late, like they refund all the tickets. Like, so it's like, but you better not do anything that inconveniences. And so that's really great for the community, but individually you have to be really on top of it. Almost all the clients that I've seen that are Japanese or more or Eastern, they really struggle with shame.
Yeah.
And so shame is this feeling that we are flawed. It's this feeling that I'm not meeting expectations. It's this feeling like I'm not enough. You know, it's something that we struggle with as human beings. And so any thoughts, man, on what we're chatting about? When you were talking about it, I could tell that like a part of your story has been, and you becoming emotionally whole has been learning how to be okay with not meeting expectations.
Yeah.
And that's really difficult for a lot of us.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me at least, like for my life, it's a combination of being raised in a Christian background and Japanese background. And the combination of the two was pretty heavy.
Double expectations.
It was a little heavy for me, at least. I don't know, maybe other people could have handled that, but
for sure.
You know, as a kid, I'm the fourth kid, and my older siblings are like straight A students, 4.0s, top of their class, top of their music classes, top of their friend groups. It didn't matter. They excelled at everything academic in my eyes, and they had tons of friends. And even when we moved to Utah from Washington, same story. It took them 2 seconds to adapt and acclimate, and then and the same for me too. I mean, I learned a lot from my siblings socially and stuff like that. But the expectations that were there were so, I didn't have to guess what the expectations were. My parents made it very clear. Why can't you be more like, why do you have to do this? You're supposed to be like, fill the gap, you know? My parents had a deep belief that I'm supposed to be a leader. they told me that since as early as I can remember. I don't know, primary type age.
Mm-hmm.
I'm supposed to be an example. I'm not supposed to. That kid's running out. He's screaming. You're not supposed to do that. You're an example. You're the leader here. Everyone is watching your example. And that was how I was at school, in sports, in music. It didn't matter. The expectation, that's too much for a kid to have on them at that age.
Well, because is it okay to have high expectations? Not only is it okay, but I think it's actually a really positive thing. I think everyone should have high expectations. I have really high expectations for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I deal with how do I deal with it when I don't meet those expectations? How do I respond to that internally?
Mm-hmm.
That's everyone grows up with certain expectations. And as a kid, as a teenager, we are basically incapable of knowing how to deal with not meeting expectations.
Mm-hmm.
And unless we have people, mostly parents, that can like notice what it's like for us when we don't meet expectations, and they can like be there to like support us and be like, hey, like, it's okay. Like it really is okay. Unless we have that kind of like mentorship or support, the unmet expectations eats us alive. It starts creating this deep shame that becomes a part of our identity. And then that's what we take into adulthood.
Yeah.
So this happens all the time, especially in Japanese culture. This happens. I see this all the time. You know, just the example that comes to mind is they did all this research in Japan where they're like, why is the suicide rate for middle-aged men like so high in Japan? And they were looking into it, and these researchers couldn't find any answers. And then they decided to start looking at like some of the corporations, some of the major corporations.
Business.
Yep, some of the businesses. And what they found is a new practice that these corporations were starting to enact was they were starting to fire some of their employees at like 55 before they had to pay out like the pensions.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So they were saving all this money. And so these Japanese people, so in Japan, you would know this better than me, but you're basically talking about expectations. You're basically expected to keep, when you graduate from college, you're basically expected to keep a job like almost your whole life and just like move up and stuff like that. And if you unexpectedly get fired, not only do you bring all this shame to yourself, but you bring all this shame to your family. Like it's your fault. Like it's not a very forgiving situation.
It's a cold world in the business world out there. Yeah. So
we've got the shame, but then it reminds me of something else that I wanted to talk to you about, which is like this. I believe the root of this is because a lot of people lose their jobs and they don't kill themselves. So why is this happening? Well, not only the shame piece, but they started to get really identified. Like it started to actually become a part of their identity. Like, who are you? I'm a software engineer. Who are you? Like they actually,
I see what you're saying.
It becomes, they actually it becomes who they are. So if you take away who someone believes that they are, and that's a part of their identity, they become lost.
Yeah. What's left?
They don't know what the heck to do.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you add shame to it. It's a recipe for suicide.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of like how important it is for us to make sure that I definitely want to talk to you about attachment but just any thoughts on what we're chatting about.
I think the big thing is what you were like, for me at least, the big thing is that I didn't have the other part of that. The expectations are okay, but how do you go about it after? How do you support them after when they fail? Like, I think as far as expectations go with that stuff, I kind of felt like I had to readjust. Like, anytime my parents would have an expectation, I would have to readjust with myself. Like, is this realistic for me? But I'm just trying to think honestly of how I addressed the shame that came with that. Because a lot of the times it was just pure shame about a lot of the things that I was like, wasn't living up to their expectations with. But I guess like, how would you say you can recognize that with like your past?
Recognize what?
The shame. Like, how were you reacting to the shame?
So your question is like when someone is actually feeling shame from maybe not meeting an expectation or not meeting a mistake, like how do they recognize that?
Mm-hmm.
And how do they respond better to that?
Mm-hmm.
I think you already know the answer to this.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like I didn't. I feel
How did you do it? Because you clearly went, I remember, like, you clearly went from this phase in your life where you were feeling quite a bit of shame to, it could still sneak in, you know. I mean, none of us are perfect. Like, I think becoming emotionally whole doesn't mean that it means we're able to let go of our past, but most people not only carry pain with them, but they're also conditioned mentally.
Mm-hmm.
And so you let go of the pain, that is a rebirth. That like honestly changes your life.
Yeah. As
I've seen happen with you and I've also experienced. And Kimberly's about to go through that. But it really does change your life. But then you still have the training of how you've been conditioned mentally, which is way easier to overcome than the emotional side. The way that I kind of view it is like, if you imagine like a backpack and the backpack is full of like 2 big rocks and each of these rocks weighs 20 pounds or something. But then there's also a bunch of little pebbles on the bottom. Healing from your past, which we're going to talk more about, is like completely healing from your past is like taking those 2 big rocks out. Now you have a bunch of those little pebbles and you'll spend your whole life like one by one, changing the way that we think and how to be more humble and like patient and understanding and all these things. It's just a lifelong thing. But so going back to the shame thing, it's like, there's definitely deeper shame that is rooted in past pain. And then there's shame that is more connected to how we think and how we view ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's what I was really asking about is like, the pain's not there, but the way of thinking is still something you gotta like keep fighting like all the time. And so I was like,
it's something that you're still working on.
Yeah.
And I'm working on my own stuff.
It's not hard. Like once you've made the decision, it's like, oh, I noticed that. Now I gotta like, I'm going to do this, you know, but it's just kind of as I go, I pick up on things. It's like, I could keep making that one better. Like I could keep tuning this one up, but.
So here's what I've noticed with you that's really pretty inspirational is most people, when they feel a difficult emotion like anxiety or shame, we're not usually aware of it until like 5 minutes after or 2 days after or whatever time period after. But if we are really committed to recognize it and we're really intentional with wanting to change it and we're doing what we can to try to have the right perspective and to try to stay spiritually connected is important too. By the way, spiritual connection it basically increases our awareness. Think of it, just a side note, think of any spiritual connection as light. So we have light in us and that light begins to grow brighter and brighter. And so we see things quicker. It quickeneth the mind and it lighteth the way before us.
Wow.
So it creates the path of our purpose, but it also helps us to be aware of things quicker. So that's
through like spiritual connection, you're saying like that light grows and that's what makes that. Okay.
That's an important part of it.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened for you. Remember you were talking about how you were missing spirituality and you started to incorporate that. What's the gift that came from that? You started to become more aware, and that awareness and that light started growing more and more. And sometimes people think that's a curse. Like, oh my gosh, I'm noticing all the crap in my closet. This sucks. Like, it's getting heavy, but it's good to see it. And then we can like take the trash out.
Yeah. I think it should, yeah, it looks like a scary thing at first, but it's an awesome thing that's happening. You know, like if you're noticing things, like, I don't know. I had to remind myself to be grateful. I'm like noticing things in my life as I was working through them. Like, God's actually talking to me. He's actually showing me these things. I couldn't find these on my own before. So that means something's happening. Like, there's proof that like
Totally.
I'm connecting to something here.
So this important practice of stillness, and then from a place of stillness, we're seeking something. Help me to be more aware of my pain. Help me to start to overcome this. And so, and there's a lot of nature and scriptures. There's so many ways to spiritually connect with God and all that stuff. But it's such a beautiful, so to go back to what we're talking about, it's such a beautiful process, because what happened for you that is inspirational, to go back to the main point, is you are a spiritual person deeply.
Yeah.
And when you're active, like you were saying, when you're active in that, you actually, I've seen this happen for you, you actually are able to be aware of the emotion or the thought in the very moment that it's happening. That's real power, because then you don't have to fumble and have it affect your life and struggle with it, because you're seeing it in real time and you're like, oh, interesting. I'm feeling shame right now. And I know that that's my spirit or my body telling me that the way that I'm viewing myself is, I'm being too hard on myself, or I'm viewing myself in a way that's also like, oh, that's interesting. Sometimes it's just being aware. If we're aware of it in the moment, we don't necessarily, sometimes that's enough just to have it. It doesn't have enough energy to take root and to start affecting how we feel and affecting our relationships and all the things that it touches.
Is that not, I mean, is it normal to?
No, you're not normal. And that's not normal. And it's something that anyone can get to, but it takes a really spiritually intentional human being to be able to get there. And so that's where you're at, by the way. And that's the inspiration of your story. And so that's really cool.
Well, I feel like you'd have to, anyone who knows me, I'd have to give credit where credit's due. And I feel like I just did what I was supposed to do. A lot of the changes, like real changes, and the quickness and the depth of my feelings now, like that's all God. 100%. Yeah, I don't know, recently I've felt so sure about those experiences being really big things that God did for me. That was for me,
And that's really powerful, man, because as soon as somebody believes that their growth emotionally or spiritually, as soon as somebody starts to believe that it's all them, later.
Yeah, you're done.
See ya. You hit a wall.
Yeah.
And this awareness is halted. Like, you can read all the books and learn all the facts and learn all the knowledge, but awareness is light, and it's a spirit. It's a spiritual principle. However you want to chalk it up. It's
like truth. The truth. It's just being able to see the truth in everything, the things around you and stuff.
And our spirit. So our spirit is made up of light. Our spirit is made up of the truth. But another word to describe our spirit is awareness. So, yeah. So that's why stillness and getting into this deeper part of us, that's, so it's us, but there's an influence there that you're talking about, whether it's you believe it's God, nature, something greater than ourselves, that is fueling this light, basically. The light within is connected. The light within is connected to all light.
I'm thinking, I just had this image of like echolocation, like spiritual echolocation. That you're like,
man.
putting it out there and you read back what you're getting, and the truth, it's all just truth and light and knowledge when you're in that, of like what's around you, what you're seeing, who are you really seeing in front of you when you say hi, to the person at the counter. What are they really going through? Can you see? I don't know if I'm there, but I pray to be there every day. I something I try and do is, I heard this quote somebody said that was like, if you want to heal the world, start with the person in front of you. And I've been trying to do that every day, whoever it is, trying to see them.
Well, and the most important person in front of us to start with is ourselves.
In the mirror, probably.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So it reminds me of this, we're talking about, this theme that we're talking about your journey of kind of becoming emotionally whole. We're talking about how a big part of that at some point for you was like letting go of a lot of your pain that was there, maybe from your parents and your upbringing and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I've noticed something recently that it just reminded me of what you're saying. It's like, what's the number one biggest thing that stops people from letting go of pain? It's fear.
Fear, yeah. I knew you were going to say that.
And what are people afraid of? Well, a big part of it I've noticed is I'm afraid that if I let go of this pain,
mm-hmm.
Well, first off, my thoughts or Satan have already convinced me that this pain is a part of who I am.
Yep.
So if I let go of this pain, who am I? Are people going to like me? Am I going to feel lost? I'm afraid that I'm not going to know who I am. And I wish people could see it more, because the reality of it is it's going back to the mirror. It's like looking in the mirror. And when you look in the mirror and you see this reflection back to you, and let's just assume this is like a deep mirror that's able to see deep inside of you,
mm-hmm.
a spiritual mirror, we can say. The layers of that is, okay, you'd start with physical, and then there'd be an emotional layer
mm-hmm.
above your spirit, above your true self.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what people have always seen. And so of course they believe it's like actually a part of who they are.
Yeah.
But being able to see that this is just a layer above who you are.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've noticed, and I want to get your thoughts on this, is that some people that are more aware, that usually talk about this stuff, they are aware that like, but there's good things that have come from my pain too. I've developed good qualities. Like your story and your pain has helped you be a lot more humble than you would be otherwise.
Yeah. I
think you were born with that gift anyways, but
God really carved those things into me with those experiences, I feel like.
For sure, man.
Yeah.
So like that what thoughts are saying also is trying to say is like, you're going to lose those good parts of you. Those have always been connected to the
That's
pain.
So true.
And so if you let go of that, you're going to lose. And it's like, no, those gifts, those things that you've gained, they have actually become a part of your spirit. It's like, it reminds me of like a gray parts of us that are now touched by the pain, and they become lighter. They become more bright.
Mm-hmm.
They actually think that's kind of what happens in a more simple way, but they're a permanent part of you.
Mm-hmm.
When you let go of the pain, they will not go away. And this is why people believe that pain is a gift, because I can let go of it.
Yeah.
And then I get to keep all the good stuff.
Exactly. I've always imagined it as like something carving a huge reservoir out of you. You're a big chunk of wood and it gashes out this huge chunk. And then that space can then be filled with, I don't know, a resin and create a beautiful table or something. Or it can be filled with love. Things that space can be filled with something, and it's double. You get a double blessing from it.
100%. It's a cool way to put it.
Mm-hmm. I've been talking to Ashlyn my girlfriend about this so much. I'm so amazed at how good at his job God is. He's so intricate. Like think of anything bad that happens, there's always a beautiful thing that comes from. Maybe more than just one beautiful thing that comes from it. There's always, I'm amazed at how beautiful that plan is with us and with those things, that no matter what happens to us, something good will come. And potentially, the more you can see, the more you'll be able to see how many better things came from that. It might not be one thing. It might be 10 things that came from that bad thing. And the more you learn and grow, you'll learn how many of those things really bless you and in how many ways they did. And I'm just realizing that in my own life, man. I'm looking back and I'm like,
so cool.
Holy cow. There's another blessing that came from that too. And it's endless. He really does shower those things upon you for just trying.
So cool. Yeah. And that's the key right there. Yeah. So what is the difference between attachment and connection? So let me phrase it with a bit of context. Like, this goes back to East and West, is that in our American culture, attachment is romanticized. It's viewed as like a really good thing, like feeling attached to someone else.
Right.
But actually, as an adult, it's really unhealthy to be attached to anyone or anything. So I want to get your thoughts on what's the difference between attachment and connection.
The first thing that comes to my mind is just like attachment feels more one-sided than connection.
That's really insightful, actually.
I feel like connection is always going to be a two-way street. Attachment doesn't always feel that way.
That's really cool, actually, because in order to feel a deeper connection with someone else, it's like the energy from them has to meet the energy from you in the middle, and then it kind of shoots back.
Yeah.
And so this is a really hard thing for people in dating when they're like, I know I'm trying to find a partner, I'm trying to get married. I know that I felt a connection with someone because I felt it, but like they never talked to me ever again.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not because you didn't actually connect with them unless you're, we'll maybe talk about that. It's not that you actually didn't connect. The connection was very real, but maybe they didn't want that, or there's so many other reasons that scared them a little bit. Like,
it's too real.
Yeah. This guy like saw this deeper part of me and then I ran away from it or something. But so true what you're saying. So attachments can be one-sided. Connection is always a two-way thing. So the other big difference that remind me of our conversation about this is attachment is I need someone or something to have balance or fulfillment in my life. It's a need. A connection is a want. I just want to give. I just want to connect with this other person. I just want to get married. I don't need it to be balanced and fulfilled in my life, but I want it. So we want to be, as an adult, the goal is to be attached to nothing, but connected to everything. This is like the pop psychology part of like why people are so into like these attachment theories. Like, what attachment? What
attachment?
Yeah.
What are you?
And that stuff is cool and valid. I think people identify with it too much. But I want to talk. Yeah, I want to talk. Any other thoughts on what we're talking about as far as like attachment and connection? Because attachment we'll talk more about. It's just not a good thing, and the reason why it's not a good thing is because it's stemming from a void within yourself that is already there, and you're trying to employ someone else to fulfill that because you don't know how to deal with it on your own.
Or like deal with it, like give it to yourself? Or what do you mean?
The root of all attachment in this context is, I wouldn't say all attachment, but the root of most attachment is a parent wound. So we should talk about that probably. So like, what is a parent wound? A parent wound is something that I needed emotionally from my mom or my dad, and I didn't get it. And so this can happen anywhere between the age of 0 and 17, 18-ish. So I have very real emotional needs growing up. And if those aren't met, it creates a void, an emotional void. And then I bring that into adulthood. And I maybe have some awareness that void is there, but I don't really know what it is or what it's connected to. And I'm just unconsciously dating or looking for, I'm just trying to be happy. It's an innocent pursuit. I just want to be happy. I just want to feel fulfilled. And I've noticed that when people approve of me or love me, I feel so complete. But then when I get rejected, I feel I crumble. That as an example.
Right.
So
I'm trying to give myself an example with my own life, because if I think back on it, like one thing that I really wanted from my dad was, in some aspects, forgiveness. I did make mistakes. I already came to terms with those mistakes, and he didn't forgive me. That was hard. That was really hard for me as a teenager.
Like you didn't meet his expectations.
Yeah, in some
whatever.
way. And he didn't say it's okay. Didn't say, What did you learn? It was punishment, or you should feel bad for this. Or that's at least what I gleaned from that, by his reaction. And then I'm just realizing in different ways later how I carried that on. I guess try and help me understand, would that be me? If forgiveness was what I was lacking, then would it be forgiving others or forgiving myself in scenarios because my dad didn't forgive me?
Yeah, so it goes to kind of the fundamental need of what we all need from our mom and our dad when we are a teenager specifically, is we need that kind of emotional support.
Yeah.
Like you said, he didn't forgive you. You really kind of needed him in certain moments to be like, hey,
show me some love, please.
It's okay. Or So let's talk about how this shows up for people. So the breakdown of it is, so when we're born, we are super vulnerable because we are born with a void. Right when even before we were born, we have this emotional void. And the only two people that can fulfill that is our biological mom and our biological dad. And so 0 to 2 years old, how does that emotional need get met? Physical touch. I see parents a lot or future parents that are pregnant and they're like, oh my gosh, dude, I'm freaking out. I don't know if I'm going to be able to be the dad that I need to be for my kid. It's all you need to do for the first year is just touch them skin and they will get emotional. The process of emotional, it's built in to the process. So 0 to 2 is physical touch, and there's some overlap here, but 2 to 5, I have a 2 and a 5-year-old. It's all about play. If mom and dad play with them and take intentional time to play with them and be present, they love it. It's they feel loved. They feel like they're enough. They feel confident, right?
Yeah.
6 to 11. This is when the imagination starts. They want to connect through imagining things and chit chat, talking about space. Talking about aluminum foil.
Running around in
just the most random crap. They feel loved and they feel enough, and they feel that void is filled if they just are. If their parents are taking time to talk with them, basically.
Is it creativity that they're looking for?
100%.
Okay, cool.
Creative connection.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And chit-chatting and just talking about random stuff. So the interesting is most parents are good at providing the physical touch from age 0 to 2. And then most parents are pretty good at the play. And most parents are actually pretty good at the more chit-chat, creative, and talking about random stuff that doesn't matter. Like Donald Trump's hair and whatever.
Right.
But when a girl turns 11-ish and when a boy turns 12, 13-ish, this is when it gets real. This is when it transitions to this kid not only needs time, but they need real emotional support. So what does that actually look like? Let's say John comes home and he's 13 years old and he goes to school and a girl that he likes tells him that she doesn't want to ever talk to him again. And he really liked this girl. Bummer, John.
Heartbreak.
So mom's in the kitchen and mom notices that John's head is down. And she says, "Hey, John, like, what's up? I can tell you look a little down." He's like, "I don't want to talk about it." So he goes up to his room.
Mm-hmm.
And then the mom then waits a little bit maybe and then initiates going up there.
Knocks on the door.
"Hey, like, I've been thinking about you today and I noticed that I can tell that something like I want to be there for you." And if the mom had been somewhat good at these earlier stages, there's some like trust and attachment already there. So attachment's really important when you're younger, but it's not healthy as an adult. There's an attachment. So John eventually was going to feel comfortable and he'll open up with mom, and then mom will respond well and be like, "Oh, I know. I felt that way too. Like, I get it. It sucks." And that is magic. That experience that I described is literal magic. That infuses worth and enoughness into the soul of John. And that never goes away.
He'll always remember that time his mom was there on the bed talking to him, holding him about that,
100%. And it's not just about one experience. It's like some parents are way too hard on themselves. Like, "Oh, John came home and he was sad, but I got a call and I never circled back." It's like, it's okay. Like you have to zoom out. How am I consistently showing up? Am I consistently emotionally engaging my teenagers and trying to be supportive of them? Or am I avoiding it? And so this is the kicker. So the same way that we parents or that we respond to other people emotionally is often how we're dealing with our own emotions. So if I'm avoiding my own emotions, when I see my kid feeling sad, I'm going to avoid it.
I can't deal with that.
Unconsciously.
Yeah.
If I'm used to like trying to put a positive spin on everything when it's really actually is sad, then when my kid's like, "I feel sad because this girl just rejected me," our response is going to be like, "It's okay. Like it's like everything's all good." Like it's some quick positive fake response.
Right.
So as I'm getting like carried away, but there's one question that people can ask themselves so how do I know if I have a parent wound? How do I know if I have been emotionally impacted by my mom or dad? There's one question that you can ask yourself that's a kind of a golden question. And that question is, how comfortable did I feel opening up with my mom when I was growing up? How comfortable did I feel opening up with my dad when I was growing up? If the answer is anything like, "It just didn't really happen," or "I didn't feel that comfortable," it doesn't matter the reason why. It means that you're going to have a parent wound. You're going to have this void. You didn't get the love that you needed, and you inevitably are carrying that into adulthood, and that is unconsciously going to be affecting your life. I've experienced this. This happened to me. I know that you experienced this, and I want to get your thoughts on how did you notice that this impacted you in your life? I didn't get what I necessarily, it's okay. It's all meant to be, but I didn't get what I needed emotionally. I didn't get this approval, this support that I needed.
Right. It left me for a long time. I was very angry. I was like, I already knew some of the things were really, really obvious, the things that my parents didn't give me. And I was pretty mad about it for a long time, seeing what other people were given, or the not just financially, but emotionally, what they were given. That makes you frustrated when you see your friends have those things and stuff. But just seeing how, I guess with my life, it held me back a lot. I had a lot of fear. There was like this fear of, I'm behind. Everybody else got what they needed and they're ahead and I'm
Sure.
behind. And like that was a fear that I had a lot, was just that I couldn't keep up with everybody else. That my story was, it really was a big narrative change in my head, that this whole false narrative that I wrote for myself, that it's harder for me, that life's different, that I had it harder, that my circumstances were like, all that stuff was just all consumed in, like, I was just consumed by that narrative. And I really had to break that to like push that, to like not be so attached to the pain and the trauma of what happened, like with those parent wounds. But yeah.
So like this narrative of like, I'm not enough. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm not enough. That shame that we were talking about was really starting to,
not enough. I'll never be enough. I'll never catch up. I like a whole narrative of, it was too tough for me and I just am not going to make it because of that.
That's really relatable for most people, I think. So we were talking about this too a little bit ago, and I thought it was kind of cool how, like, generally speaking, so most of us carry this parent wound or this void into adulthood. If there's a stronger disconnect from the same sex parent, it almost always impacts your self-worth.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was the case for you and your dad, same sex parent. Self-worth, shame was I'm not enough. I'm not. And the thing that people really struggle with is like this parent void, this parent wound is not a perspective in our life. There's definitely thoughts that can make it harder. Like, I really do suck. And these are thoughts.
Yeah.
But what's hard for people is, what's hard about the parent wound is it's a feeling. Like, I know that I'm good enough. I know that I'm enough, but I consistently feel like I'm not.
Yeah. Like it's a lie or something.
Yeah. And so that is like real suffering for people. And so I know that this was a breakthrough for you. I remember talking to you about this. And this is a breakthrough for many of us, this breakthrough of realizing that, wait, this feeling it's not my fault. It's not me. This is connected to what I needed from my dad and I didn't get, or what I needed from my mom and I didn't get. So it's not my fault. I was just watching Good Will Hunting
That's exactly what I was thinking
the other night, actually. And it's a very powerful moment in the movie where, what's his name? Robin Williams says, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. There's so much truth to that for most of our stories. If you can get to a place where you can actually embrace that, like it's these triggers that I'm having, this pain that is there from my past, like it really is not my fault.
No matter how much you believe it is, the truth is that you were 6. You were 8.
You were 12.
You were 12.
How
could it have been your fault?
100%.
With the knowledge you had, I barely know enough now. How could I have done it then?
For sure. And now I know someone is thinking this while they're listening to this right now. They're like, well, that's like that can be a victim mentality. Like it's everyone else's fault, but that can definitely be taken too far. I've seen it both ways, where if I believe that all my problems are
someone else's fault,
that's not going to be true either. So what's the balance of taking enough responsibility but not taking too much? And just a thought on that real quick, if you want to share something on that too, is like, I'm an adult and I am responsible for figuring this out and letting go of this pain. That is my responsibility. I need to do the things I need to, but the root of why I've struggled is not my fault, but it is my responsibility to heal and to let go of it.
I love that. No matter what happened or whose fault, you decide what happens next.
Think about how silly it is. Just put it into context, just going off what you're saying, that I believe that this pain is my fault. The only true statement of that is if you intentionally just start doing things that you know are then the pain is gonna show up as guilt.
Mhm.
And but the origin of the root of all of our deep struggles is pain that did not come from us. And then from that, man, we just did the best we could. We reacted, we responded. I remember being so angry when I was a teenager because my parents split up at the worst possible time. They split up when I was 12 or 13, which is, research shows, like the worst. And my dad was gone, and I loved my dad. He was like my friend, and he was gone. And I think, he was going through his own struggles and wasn't able to be there that much. And then I was left with my mom, who I viewed as a monster, who I hated because she was abusive. And I love my mom now, but I hated her. I was like this. This hate was this anger was, and it consumed me. It became, and from that, I went on a strong path of like darkness for years, just straight, like almost intentionally making decisions that I knew were wrong, but I wanted to do it anyways.
Just wanted to burn everything.
100%.
Yep.
And I told you a little bit about that. But so with my own story, I could look back and be like, well, I did that. And it's like, yes, I did. But the root of that was feeling this deep pain of, I just wanting my mom to love me and to feel that. And just wanting my dad to be able to be more consistent. Like, it's pain when our parents are not able to be there consistently for us. What's underneath that void that we're talking about is pain.
Yeah.
So it's so beautiful what you're kind of saying, that it's never actually our fault, but we are responsible.
You're always responsible
to figure it out. Yeah.
Of course. Just like oh man, it's just so, just thinking like how many kids, go through that stuff. And I think with my parents, I realized that I had to talk to them to understand that they were just humans, that they were just adults, young adults who wished that they knew more at that time too. I've been more lucky than I think a lot of people are, to be able to have that conversation with my parents about it. And I'm really grateful. I'm glad that you and your mom are cool.
I love my mom, dude. We were talking about this earlier, how pain can be a gift. And all of my best qualities have come from her now as an adult. Hated her guts when I was a teenager. Hated her to the, like, more. I don't know if this hatred it was extreme. It was a 10 out of 10. And if it wasn't for my mom, I knew exactly what it felt like to not feel like seen, and to not feel understood, and to be hurt by someone.
Yeah.
And this infused this fire in me. Once this dark path was over for me, this infused this fire in me I never want someone else to feel like the way that I felt with my mom. And it became a gift. It is the main reason why I became a therapist. It is the main reason why, like, I have this deep care and love for people now. And so that's from my mom. It's so grateful for her. So it's a beautiful process that all of us can go through.
That pain isn't a bad thing. And with the parent wounds, dude, it's so weird that we're so similar in that way. Like, me and my mom are cool now. Like, I love my mom so much. And I'm really grateful for everything that happened.
I think of it like I believe this is true. If you don't believe in God, you can use this as a symbol. But I know that this is true, that before we were born, we existed.
Mhm.
And we existed in our true nature that we are now, which is a spirit. And God knew exactly who you were, and he knew exactly who I was. And he said, I've got the perfect mom for you. And he knew exactly what was going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
He knew that my mom, for example, wasn't going to actually be able to be emotionally available. And he knew my mom was going to be pretty harsh at times. And he said, this is perfect. Now I know why. So it's like God or the universe, or using this as a symbol, the gift of pain is not just the strengths that we gain afterwards, but it is an understanding of like, why was this supposed to happen?
Yes.
Yeah. And I've seen people try to shortcut that,
Mm-hmm.
where like they're in pain and they're like, I just want to understand why this is happening. And it's like, beautiful soul. I get it. You can't, I don't want to be an absolutist, but for the most part, you can't really know that until you go through
all
it.
the way through. Yeah.
All the way through it. And then that is what does the Bible say? That is the peaceable fruit. That is the ruby that emerges as a result of it.
The purification process, right? It's funny how often we try and decide how many hammers, how many times the blacksmith has to strike us for us to be good. Like, we're just like, no, I think I get it. And it's like, let me dip you in and heat you again and let's do it again. It's like, we shouldn't really be thinking we can call those shots.
Mm-hmm. It's cool, man. It's very cool. So, going back to the parent wound thing. So same-sex, disconnect from the same-sex parent.
Mm-hmm.
Self-worth is what that usually impacts. Disconnect from the opposite sex parent. So for us as men, our moms, or if you're a girl, your dad. So for me, it was my mom. That the emotional disconnect from the opposite sex parent is gonna most likely impact your relationships with the opposite sex.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't had enough research with same-sex relationships, but I think it's relationships across any intimate, closer relationships is what what seems to be true. So self-worth is how it's going to affect your life. Relationships, and then the consistent weave with both. If you didn't receive it from both, or if you didn't receive it from one, the consistent general consequence of the parent wound is I really struggle with knowing how to deal with my emotions. Just in general. Because it's not that you needed a parent to teach you how to deal with emotions. It's you needed a parent to be there for you emotionally. Mm-hmm. That's how you learn how to deal with emotions. You don't need your parent to be a therapist. You need him to actually like be there for you. Like in the example of John, like, because my mom was there for me when I was sad and I felt better afterwards, it's like it infuses this in the soul of the person. Like when pain comes up, like I maybe don't know exactly intellectually how to deal with it, but I know I can feel better and I'm going to feel better. And I just need to like.
They're just kind of walking you through the emotional process of feeling better. Right? Is that what you're saying?
100%. They're basically, because as a teenager, we are incapable of emotionally healing. We're incapable of fully emotionally healing when there's pain there. We're so vulnerable. We need our parents, and it's got to be the biological parents.
Right.
One of my specialties is adoption, and I see these adopted kids who have the most unbelievable adopted parents, the most loving. Anyone that adopts a child is, I like, half special. Angel, half angel. Like they are amazing people that really are altruistic and some of the most amazing people you'll meet. Anyways, they feel all this love from their adopted parents, and that's good. But I don't know. I don't understand it fully, but it's because it's not the biological mom and dad. The love that they feel from them can't fully fulfill what they need.
Like it just doesn't.
It feels like half.
Really?
Yep.
Wow.
I don't know the exact percentage, but,
right,
it doesn't
big.
feel, it cannot. Yeah.
Wow.
It's something spiritual deeper there that we don't, but the research is crystal clear on this. And I see this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And my heart goes out for people that are adopted, because this parent wound started. For most people, the parent wound doesn't start until teenage years, but for an adopted kid, it starts right at birth. Think about it.
Right.
You're in the womb. You're all the attachment is there in the womb. Physiologically, you're getting the physical touch, and intuitively or spiritually, you know who that human is. It runs deep in your spirit,
right? And
then at day 3 or month 3 or whenever it happens, or year 3, you're just completely ripped away from that person
to new hands. No.
Oh, like it's a deep, deep wound, and the how much that impacts somebody that's adopted, or how much our parent wound affects us. There's factors other than it's how emotionally was I when I was born? Like, what's my emotional? We're all born. This is a way to simplify it, but some people are just born more emotional and more sensitive than others. It's a curse, but it's also a gift. It can turn into a gift, like we've been talking about. But if a really tough combination is somebody that's more emotionally sensitive and they have a parent wound, they can have the exact same parent wound as their brother, but their brother's just not as emotionally sensitive, and it affects them 5 times as much. There's other factors too, but that's a big one.
That's it. That's a really cool thing too. That I like. I think that would do a lot of people. Like a lot of parents would be really like. I feel like that's valuable information for parents.
There's a lot more knowledge about it now. But adopted parents sometimes are so hard on themselves. They're like, I don't get it. We're loving him so good. It's like, my message is like, I feel for you, and it's not as much. You're just not as responsible for this as you think. This isn't your biological son. They want it so badly to be their biological son, which is so really beautiful. Amazing. It's so beautiful, but you have to be honest about what you can fulfill for this child and what you can't. And one of the best things to do is to help, if possible, if it's safe, to help try to nurture a open relationship with the biological parent, especially the biological mom. Open that contact up, and it's a little bit different. You got to be safe with it, and the teenager needs to understand why could be helpful for them or important, but yeah. Even with the, under the right settings and things, even they can recover perfectly fine from their parent wounds, is what you're saying, right? Adopted kids, yeah. Anyone can. It's so cool. And what if my parent has died? Part of I'll just outline for a second, like we're talking about parent wounds, we're talking about the impact. Cool. Like, how do I actually heal from that? Well, this is a huge theme. The first step, the most important thing first, that this has been a theme throughout this whole podcast, there's a different way to look at it, but you have to be able to be still in your life. That's step one. You have to have some emotional balance. Don't try to dig up difficult past pain if you're got some current things in your life that are stressful or difficult that you're not dealing, or that you haven't dealt with yet. It's like, you got to, I've probably mentioned this on every single podcast. It's intentional. I'm doing it on purpose. It's so important for people everyone's always trying to shortcut the small, like you said, walking the dog and dealing with my
things, right?
stress. You have to manage your emotions first, and you have to get to a place of stillness to some degree first before your body will even let you let go of any deeper pain. It's almost like the way that the visual that comes to my mind is your spirit is like cradling this deeper pain, like with two hands.
Mhm.
And it's like cradling it. And the spirit has to be still. It has to be calm. It has to be at peace to some degree. And then it will open. And then when you then access the pain from that space, it's a gentle and beautiful letting go process. But sometimes it takes someone a year to get to this place where they are managing their stress and their current problems are good enough where that opening happens. So emotional balance, step one, we'll talk more about that. Any thoughts on that though, before we...
I'm just kind of trying to wrap my head around that a little bit better, you know, because like I get what you're saying, but just so I can explain it, I guess, if I ever needed to someone else. But like the what you're saying, because the imagery is so cool with the this is here, and then when you are still, then only then will that open up and then release. That makes sense. Is doing actions like there's stillness, but then how does the actions warm? Like, how would you say that like warms up your? Is it like doing stretching before a workout, or is it like, you know what I'm saying? Because you're dealing with the day to day in order to get down into the deeper stuff.
Exactly.
So it's not like a warm up because it's your day to day stuff. It's like it's different. I don't know how. I'm trying to like. I like imagery, so I'm trying to like picture what you're.
Yeah. I think like the actual practical application, we'll get more specific with this too, but the actual practical application, non-imagery, is I have to be emotionally checking in with myself potentially every single day. And I have to ask myself, what am I feeling? What emotions have been coming up for me lately? And then what is this emotion telling me that I need right now? That is the practice. Because remember, emotions are actually coming from these hands, or the spirit. These emotions, the surface emotions, are actually coming from our spirit. They're trying to tell us, hey, listen to these emotions. Try to get the message so that I can like ease up over here.
So I don't have to hold this so tight.
I don't want to hold this I don't want to hold this. It's fine. I'm fine with holding it, but I don't want to.
That's perfect. Yeah.
And so the key is, this is why we're so high on emotions, is because emotions are messages from deep, from the source, trying to tell us what we need in our life. And the challenge for all of us is learning how to listen and be specific and take the action.
Right.
So it's this combination of masculine and feminine. The feminine energy is I got to take the time for myself to look at what I'm feeling and identify it. And then the masculine is the doing. Then I got to act.
Get it done.
Yep. So an example of this would be anxiety. Let's say I'm feeling anxiety in my life. One of the messages from anxiety, if I'm feeling consistent anxiety, and I know I'm feeling anxiety, but I also know I have a deeper wound, parent wound. So anxiety is like, okay, I'm feeling anxious. I do this check-in. I know it's anxiety. And if anxiety is coming from thoughts and how I'm thinking, then it's my spirit telling me that I'm viewing something in a way that's incorrect, a false view of my life or a situation. So maybe I have to read a little bit. Maybe I have to maybe I have to talk about it with people, and I have to start building this light that we're talking about, building more of an understanding on like how I view things and how that's like, it takes some time.
Yeah.
And anxiety is just one example. There's frustration, there's shame, there's triggers, there's a bunch of stuff. We talked about some of that in detail, I think, on podcast number 3. But
it's that daily check-in
stuff. The spiritual practice and the emotional check-in, merging those, whatever your spiritual practice is, nature, praying, meditating, it's all good. It's all good stuff. So that's like maybe more practical on like the emotional balance piece.
Yeah.
But these hands of like the great healer, which is us and Christ, is if it's actually Christ, if you believe in Christ, and if you don't believe in Christ, you can view Christ as a symbol. But these healing hands of the readiness and the willingness to be patient with yourself while you deal with current stuff. And then the balm, these healing hands, that is you and Christ, or the symbol of Christ if you don't believe in Christ, the healing begins to happen. How do you specifically do that? Well, when you are still and emotionally balanced, the how to heal from that becomes pretty natural and instinctive. But people like intellectual steps. And so they like to feel, have an idea of what that looks like. So not to get too specific, but basically what that looks like is after the emotional balance is there. By the way, when it comes to a parent wound, this emotional balance, the first step is learning how to give myself what my parents never could.
So figuring that stuff out.
And that's the emotional balance, because part of the emotional balance is like, I have to actually support myself. I never got the support I needed. So I have to be there for my own emotions. I have to like tell myself like, hey, like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And you have to be the voice that you never had.
Be the voice that you never had.
And that's what emotional balance really means. And when I'm feeling sad, what does that mean? Oh, I need hope in my life. You have to really show up for yourself. And Kimberly's was so inspirational about this in her own story. She had to really show up she had to sacrifice a lot. Sometimes you have to sacrifice a lot. She had to sacrifice her own family to heal.
For herself.
And she's still got a little bit more that we can't wait for her to go through. But so step one is the emotional balance. After that, you have to be intentional. So sometimes there's a little bit of groundwork of like intellectual understanding of like, okay, what did I need from my dad that I didn't get?
So it's like kind of like, is it okay to be like, what is a good dad?
Totally. What you're doing is you're trying to see the pain that's deep down there. So that's step two. Emotional balance is step one. Step two is seeing the pain. How do I see the pain? Well, I have to see it. Some of this is a little bit of a left brain or intellectual thing. So like, what did I need from my dad and I didn't get? How has that impacted me in my life? You're just starting to build some understanding. And you're starting to see this pain. A visual I like for step two of seeing the pain is it's like, this pain is there from 15 years ago, 20 years ago, 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So it's like 500 feet away from your front door. It's pretty far away. It's buried deep down there. And it's sitting on a bench with its back turned to you and its head is down. It is cowering and it is like, oh, get emotional thinking about it. It's so sad. And I get emotional thinking about it because that's your younger self. That's the younger me that I see when I visualize that, and you as well, and anyone. And so that is the most powerful way to see it, is to see your younger self and to visualize your younger self and what that younger self had to go through. And they just wanted to be loved, but they were hit instead, or they wanted to feel understood, but the door was slammed in their face, These are real things that happen to me. And so seeing that that's what you want to be able to do. And so that's why sometimes this visualization of like seeing your younger self and visualizing it, so step three I recommend is like a visual. So seeing the pain intellectually a little bit, understanding it, and then you visualize it. And when you start seeing the story of your younger self, and you're still, the pain is going to come up, especially if you're ready. The pain is going to come up. And when it comes up, you have to surrender to it. You breathe with it. You just sit there and you feel it. And when you're ready, it's a beautiful thing. It's nothing. The mind builds it up to be this, it's going to be a bomb. It's going to take you out.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to go to work the next day.
Yeah.
None of that is going to be
curled up in a ball for hours. No.
Right. None of that's going to be true if the hands are open and your spirit is ready to release it. It's gentle. Yes, it's painful because it's pain, but you only have to sit there and breathe with it for like 30 seconds a minute. Give yourself a little breather. Maybe go back to it once or twice more. It'll go from like a 9 to a 6 to a 3. And you get it just from feeling it. You can get it down from like a 9 to a 3.
I remember some of those experiences like that.
Oh,
dude, it's unbelievable how like real that experience is in some cases. Like I was amazed, like you said, that was something that you like promised that would happen if I did that. And I was like, there's no way it's going from a 9 to a 5 in a 20-minute period. Like there's no way.
20-second period sometimes, yeah.
And it really happens if you let it happen.
When you're ready. Yep. Mm-hmm. Thanks for sharing that, man. That's cool. And so this is the transcendence. This is the enlightenment that they talk about in Buddhism. You don't swim against the river. You go right with it. The surrender, when you're still, and in Buddhism they talk about the stillness. When you surrender to it, it will show up, and you simply, not simply, it's a practice. You breathe with it, and then it fades from a place of stillness. The Christian view of it is it's the symbol of Christ. I love this example, how human this is. Like he knew that there was pain, so much pain that needed to be felt. And the most relatable thing he said, God, I don't want to feel this.
Any chance
just
this
like
could pass?
Yeah. Just like, I don't want to feel this, but if I have to, I will.
Yeah.
If we have to, which we do, we will. God, I will. And then what happened for Christ? The symbolism of this is so deep, and the reality, if you believe in it, is so real that he then transcended and was completely a new person. So much that he came back, resurrected in 3 days. A rebirth. Just like us, there's a rebirth, or we become a new person in Christ. If you believe in Christ, we become a new person spiritually. And the parent wound, so feeling it is so powerful. That's half of it. The other half of it, after I feel it, I don't want to move too fast. Do you have any other thoughts on so to simplify the steps of how do I let go of my parent wound? The first step generally is just feeling it. That's what we're talking about. We're breaking that down, but feeling it. Do you have any other thoughts, man, before I am rushing some of this?
No, I'm just digesting and enjoying what you're saying.
I'm enjoying what you're saying.
I think there thanks. I think there's a huge aspect to me of submissiveness.
Oh, it's such a beautiful word. Dane, will you look that word up? Will you chat GPT that word? But go ahead.
Yeah, like submissiveness is really I feel like it's the cornerstone to healing that way. Or maybe the cornerstone to change that you're talking about.
1000%.
That has to happen. And
in Buddhism, they call this surrendering.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
It's Jesus knocking at the door, but not opening it. It's, reaching down, but you've got to come halfway. It's always in everywhere you see it, that you have to submit. There has to be an offering, a sacrifice for change or for growth.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Why do we have to sacrifice to experience great gifts? It's because if we didn't, we would not appreciate the gift.
You got to ante up, right? Of course.
Yeah. And I think that's what's cool about God or the universe or nature is nature or God or the universe. It does not give to everybody. It will only, God is only imparting and giving to those that are willing to receive what they have to offer, what he has to offer.
Yeah. Nature
is the same way. You go into nature. Why is it that I had this beautiful experience once in nature, but then every other time it's just like, it's whatever. Does it have something to do with nature? No. Are you receiving the deep symbolism and the power of nature? Are you listening to what the trees or the river are trying to tell you?
Right.
There's a submissiveness and a sacrifice. Dude, I have to drive we're so lucky in Utah. I'm like, I have to drive 15 minutes to get up into the
mountain. It's a 10-minute drive to the canyon.
We're so spoiled, dude.
Shoot.
I love it. That's why I love it here, though.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a sacrifice. I'm taking away time from my kids. I'm intentional. So I'm sacrificing. I'm submitting to the drive and the time out of my day to seek. So what you're talking about is a spiritual law that if we want, if we want to get anything, answers, healing, submissiveness, intention, sacrifice. This goes back to the Bible, the Old Testament times of law of sacrifice of I have 10 sheep and I have to slaughter the greatest one or I'm certainly no historian with this. Yeah. But there's something, there's something to that. This has been around forever. So Dane.
It just says a willingness to allow control by other people or animals or behavior that shows this. Submissive, what does it say? Yeah, but that's basically it.
A willingness to give up control.
Yeah, a willingness to allow control by other people or animals. Or
so in
behavior.
This case, submissive spirit. We're talking about some more spirit. That's pretty cool though.
Control.
Dane.
Glad to contribute, man.
A willingness to give up control. That's pretty powerful.
Or allow it's like you talk about fear, right?
Yeah.
And fear, a lot of times fear is like it comes from losing control.
Yeah.
And so it's like when things spiral out of control, that's where
fear.
I think that's where fear kind of creeps in, right? It's
fear can come from there for sure.
I can't control this situation. I can't control these thoughts. I can't, whatever, other people. Yeah. So I think that's a really cool aspect of this whole conversation.
That's pretty beautiful, Dan. And then it just going off that, if the control, if we feel like we're losing control in a lot of ways, the fear will actually deepen to sadness. And that sadness means that we're experiencing a loss of hope.
Oh, wow.
So, this is one of the reasons why divorce or loss of a relationship is so sad. Yes, it's just spiritually, it's just deeper sad, but we're losing control. We're losing more than just a person. We're losing
the control. Maybe that has something to do with the offering part, like the submissiveness is you're offering trust or faith or whatever.
Well, yeah, it's cool. If that loss of control, like Dane was talking about, if it deepens enough, the sadness comes up, then for you to be able to turn that around, it requires a sacrifice, because in order to find hope, you have to be still and seek hope from God, nature, spiritual source. You have to.
There's the sacrifice.
Yep. That's a pretty cool.
That is way cool.
The relationship between what we're talking about.
Oh, wow. That is really cool. Yeah.
We're going to check in with you in a sec here, Dane. Cool. Anything right now?
Nothing that comes to mind. Yeah.
Be prepared. Be prepared in 10 minutes for a wrap up.
Yep.
But as we're maybe wrapping up this parent wound thing. So, okay, we got feeling it, That's important. That's a release of, again, I don't know these percentage, but that's a release of, we'll say half of it. But the job isn't done then yet. It's not the whole purpose of feeling pain, or not the whole purpose. One of the purposes of feeling pain is it's meant to lead to action. It's meant to lead.
Yeah.
Kimberly really challenged me and helped me realize this, because I was a little too stubborn in my own thoughts. But anytime pain is there, it leaves a hole. So feeling the pain is like cleaning it out. But then we have to replace it with something.
Right.
Okay, so
you got to plug the wound somehow.
Right. You got to stitch it up.
Yeah.
You got to stitch it up. So, okay, you feel the pain that is there from your younger self that directly, it's important to be directing this towards specifically your dad or your mom if the pain is coming from, where you want to have some idea where it's connecting from, so you can be focused in your feeling practice. I find that really valuable. After you feel it, the next thing you want to do is you want to reflect. Pain, all pain is internal fog. So you feel that pain and it starts to go away. The fog clears. You were able to see things with new eyes. And so specifically with the parent wound, the question that I really encourage for step 2 is, what are some of the gifts that have come from my dad or my mom not being there for me? What are some of the gifts? You have these new eyes. You can see it with new eyes. And the question isn't, what good things have I gained from my parent? The question is, what are the gifts that have come because my parent was not there for me the way that I needed? So for example, for my mom, the gift that came from the pain that came from my mom, the gift that came from that was there's so much stuff. But specifically, just to give an example, is like the gift of and this is a work in progress for me still, but the gift of seeing people and seeing who they are, who they really are.
Yeah.
And being understanding those that came because that is not what I got from my mom, and it instilled this fire in me to, it helped me develop that.
Yeah.
That came directly from the pain. So that's the important question, is what are the gifts that have come from the pain, basically, is maybe a better way to put it.
So that with those clear eyes, you can honestly see what it is.
You really can't see it fully the way that you need to until you feel the pain first. How can you read a sign from 100 yards away when there's fog in between you and the sign? You can maybe make out a little bit intellectually.
A couple letters here and there or something.
A couple Japanese characters. Like what? Yeah. So that's important. Any other thoughts on step 2? With new eyes, seeing the gifts that have come from the pain from your mom or your dad. You did that.
Yeah.
That was so cool when you were talking to me about that, because it was so deep. Yeah, I remember you getting emotional. It was so deep for you, because this is what you always wanted. You always wanted to have love for your parents. And this was deep. This is deep, genuine love of when somebody hurts us. This is what Christ meant when he said, love your enemies and turn the other cheek. He didn't mean just put a positive spin on it and whatever. Almost everything Christ taught was deep.
Yeah. He's
talking about the depth of feeling and really healing and letting go, so that you could see who someone really is and be grateful for what they've done for us.
Yeah. I think that if it would have been something that I never would have been able to accept myself if I didn't try and accept them again after.
Right.
I think that it was because it was one of the hardest things for me to do in my whole life, that it was something I needed to do. that was what the pain kind of told me.
That's pretty cool. And when you say it's what it was telling me what I needed to do, what are you referring to?
I needed to.
I think I'm pretty sure I know what you meant.
Yeah.
Just to clarify.
Well, with my parents, I mean, it was almost a decade of not talking. They were in another country. And then when they came back, where do you pick up? You know, like after everything that we've been through and things, I had already told them, like, you're not as much parents to me anymore as you are people that I still love and I want to be best friends to and support. And is there a way that we can do that? And at first, I mean, those conversations didn't go so well, but I couldn't sleep about it. Like I like couldn't let it go that me and my parents, that I had forgiven them, but I realized something about at least with my mom, that she knew how bad she did and what pain happened for me. She was more aware than anyone else in the family. And when I brought it up to my mom, she just begged for my forgiveness. The most honorable thing a woman could do. Like my mom, she asked me for forgiveness for the things that she had done wrong to me. That she was so sorry for all the times she called me lazy when she just didn't understand. For all the times, you know. My mom, she's an amazing person for like doing that. And like, I would have never gotten to see that in my mom if I wouldn't have tried to do what, like you're saying, when that fog left and I asked, you know, what am I supposed to do with these feelings now that I see this now? And it was like repair things with them if you can. And that never would have even happened. Like maybe I would have been friends with my mom, but seeing who my mom really is through this, past all of the anger and the pain and the stuff that happened, getting to see that my mom is like one of the most amazing people I've ever met. She's so cool. Like she's so funny. She's so positive. She's like, I never would have imagined that would be the blessing that came from that, is getting to know my mom as a friend and who she really is as a person, and getting to show her validation back when I didn't get it from her. I get to do that for her now as in her adult life. It's really cool, dude. I'm so happy about it that I get to do that for her.
Well, so you're hitting on a couple deeper truths that are pretty cool. The first one is that, well, I instantly forgot both of them, so I'm not supposed to say them. So for people have a lot of fear sometimes going through this process of like letting go of the pain from my parents. And I think what they get fear about is the last step. So it's like, feel pain, step one, recognize the gifts that have come from the pain from your mom or dad. And then the last step is ensuring that the relationship with your parent is what it is meant to be. Now, how do you do that? I've been super open about this final step because people are always so resistant to it. Not always, but often. And I've been open to many alternatives, and it always seems to come back to when a relationship is not resolved, how do you resolve it? You have to talk to the other person. You have to share with them what you just went through. You have to share more specifically is like how you've been negatively impacted in your life because they weren't really there for you. But
yeah,
it's okay, mom or dad. I promise, because these are all of the good things that I gained from this. And I love you, and I'm great. I'm the biggest reason of me sharing this with you is because I'm grateful for you, and I wanted to just tell you, that. The reason why it's such a necessary step is the deeper truth that I was too quickly thinking about when you were still talking, was that when one of the main purposes of feeling pain
Mhm.
is it's meant to turn into, in some way and somehow, helping someone else and giving back in some way.
Mhm.
Uh, and your mom, just using your mom as an example, or my mom, or both of our moms as an example, they don't realize they're not. Your mom was more aware of this than my mom, but we'll use my mom as an example that she didn't realize this, but the principle is whatever pain that we cause somebody else, we experience the same pain within ourselves.
Mm.
Now, my mom might have caused me some hurt, as an example. The same amount of hurt that she caused me was in her. It wasn't hurt for her. It might have been actually guilt or something.
Yeah,
and it's
yeah.
buried deep in there. This is the law. This is a true emotional principle that people don't understand. They're always wanting justice. Like, oh, he really hurt me, but he's getting away scotch-free. Now he's marrying someone else. Like that
No.
a-hole, it's not fair. You're not seeing it on the surface. It doesn't, but if he really did cause you pain, woman that I'm referring to, then he is carrying that within himself. He might not be aware of it, but I promise you, it is impacting his life, whether he's aware of it or not. Justice is being served in the spiritual plane, always.
And if anything, it might hurt that person more, because if they're not aware of it and they don't want to get rid of that, then that's going to affect everything forever.
And it's so hard because it's hard to see.
Mm-hmm.
But I promise it's real. So going back to this parent wound thing, our parents carry this pain in there. And so what gift that we have to be able to, just from us expressing this, I am able to fully let go of the wound that's healed up. And then they are able, if they want to, they are able to let go of.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful, and when there's no pain between two people,
Mm-hmm.
then the relationship can be what it's meant to be, which might look like no relationship, actually. Or it might look like, in your case, a friendship with your mom.
Just best friends, yeah.
Or somewhere in between. That's where the peace, that's where the full healing and peace comes from with the whole parent wound, is the relationship with my parent is what it's meant to be. We'll talk about this another time, but in some ways, if your parent isn't not there physically, it's almost easier to heal from this and have this conversation with them, because they always respond well. It seems like, is my experience with people and what for many reasons. But so if you're resistant to the whole, you got to talk to your parents. The fear, it's just going to be a fear thing, which is your brain producing thoughts that don't match up with what the truth is. Now, if your parents just unsafe, then you don't want to go meet up with them. You can write them a letter. You can do something, some kind of offering of peace and forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's important. So let's finish with a bonus question. Any other thoughts, my man, as I'm moving through this? Okay.
Lightning round.
I've been noticing this lately, and I just think I've been noticing this with some of my clients. So the question is, like, we were talking about this earlier. What is the biggest thing that stops people from letting go of their pain? And we were talking about fear. And we were talking about this fear of, like, I don't know what's behind the door. If I open that door, am I going to like who I am? Are people going to like me? Am I going to still have,
It's endless. The fear is endless narratives, dialogues going off.
But this is, what I love about my job as a therapist is it attracts more highly emotional or more emotional and more sensitive people than the normal.
Mm-hmm.
And what comes with that is, generally speaking, more creative people,
mm-hmm.
which I love, which is
That's
really cool.
Interesting, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So some of the greatest artists and people that are creative in ways that matter, that are meaningful,
mm-hmm.
I guess we should qualify that. is they, generally speaking, more emotional, more sensitive. They feel things deeper.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. So this has been coming up quite a bit. I've been surprised how much, but if I let go of my pain, is that going to affect my creativity? Because isn't this pain that is there, isn't that fueling my creativity? And if I let go of that, I'm going to lose it. So I'll share a thought on that, and then you. Well, go ahead. Was there something you were going to say?
So just to rephrase the question.
The question is like,
will I
the fear?
be less
The fear is
creative?
that if I let go of my pain, then I'm going to lose some of my creativity.
So creativity, right? I think that some of the most beautiful things, I think only the most beautiful, I don't know, maybe that's an absolute, but I think to me, some of the most beautiful things are things made from love, not pain.
Right. There's Dane.
That's a really interesting question, just in general.
Because Dane's a creative, by the way. Dane's a creative. Actually, Dane's a creative genius.
He's wearing Pumas
rarely
right now.
showers, and he's the true creative. Dane, I want to share this thought, and then you jump in, my man.
Yeah. Go.
So love, yes. We can't deny, though, that there's so much beauty that comes creatively from pain as well.
Yeah.
Some of the great works of art.
Music, man.
Music. Oh my gosh. Some of these sad songs, right?
I get into those. I love them.
I love them. Anything that can make a movie, a song, anything that can make me feel something other than fear, I think is well done.
Yeah.
I'm not a horror. I don't like horror movies and stuff.
Give me a valiant war movie, though, where the hero's dying at the end. I'll be crying every time.
Pillow soaked.
Saving Private Ryan. Keep it away from me.
So what I think is beautiful about this is creativity comes from pain, but creativity comes from also love. Creativity, here's the thing about creativity, is creativity is halted and stops when you are avoiding pain. So the question of creativity, am I going towards my pain? And am I in the process of healing it? If so, there's beautiful creativity that's going to come from that. But if there's pain there and I'm avoiding it and I'm not going towards it, I'm running away from it, later creativity's gone.
Yeah, there won't.
People think that creativity, how does this make sense? Well, true creativity comes from being still and being in the moment. And when pain comes up for us and we're avoiding it, we have to go out of the moment. We have to disengage. We have to disconnect. We have to distract.
Somehow.
And any true creative will tell you that no pure works of art and creativity come from being distracted. It's the opposite of creativity is a present moment experience that involves pain emerging from that space. If it emerges as a creative, you want to welcome it. And so will your creativity go away if you let go of pain? No, it will enhance it, and it will probably shift. And it doesn't necessarily have to shift, but like you said, it probably will shift to more maybe authentic love or beauty or other things. But the point is like, you won't forget the pain. I know that I have let go of the pain from my mom, but when I think of this younger boy sitting on a bench and he's crying and he's hurt, like I still get that the emotion is still there.
Yeah.
It's not affecting me negatively anymore. But it's more of a beauty of it.
I know, yeah, exactly.
It's hard to explain. I don't know if I'm articulating it right, but
I've literally been wanting to like ask you about that.
Well, is it
go ahead, Dane.
Sorry, is it seeing from a place of healing rather than
it taking over?
Rather than it taking over.
And if it's taking over, that's fine. Creativity can still come from that as long as you are turning towards it. That's the key.
You can't be avoiding anything to be focused it's the difference between like going down to your feelings and emotions and going up towards your intellectual, right?
Oh, that's a beautiful visual. Yeah. Because if I'm avoiding pain, I have to go up into my brain.
Right. Or you go down to the creativity.
If I'm going down, then I'm going towards I wish I could rhyme that second part.
Bars.
Bars.
So yeah. But creativity is a spiritual, creating things is a part of all of our purpose. And it's beautiful what we can create when we're not consumed with the pain. And we create things that really matter to people, and we create things. And so the theme of this is like, we're kind of going on this journey with some of the listeners of like spiritual practices and emotional healing and healing from parents and emotional balance. And the whole goal of all of this is this unraveling of your purpose and your purpose. And I can kind of sense someone that might be listening right now is kind of thinking or saying that, like, I have no idea what that is. I have no idea what that is, and I have no idea how to find that out. We're going to be talking about that in the next couple of podcasts. But what I would say is your purpose right now is to let go of any pain that is there so that the fog clears. You can see it. You're going to be able to see it clearly. It's trusting this natural process, emotional balance, then the feeling pain and healing, and then the purpose emerges if you seek it. So such a beautiful process. And go ahead.
No, I got I'm always have like pictures in my head when you're talking. I get like images of what you're saying. And it's just the backpack with the rocks. Like if you don't know your purpose, get lighter and then, get your legs strong before thinking about where you're going to go.
That's great. Thank you, my friend.
If you have benefited from this podcast in any way, it would mean the world to us to have you subscribe, to allow us to keep it going and bring on inspirational human beings.